Welcome to Catholicsplaining. Prepare yourself. You're about to be Catholicsplained. What are we Catholicsplaining today? It is the Sixth Commandment, and I'm a bit late because I started the live stream and then I realized I did not press live. So I am officially a 10 Commandment boomer. But all of you that are here watching and will be watching the replay, thank you very much. We are now on the Sixth Commandment. I have done an introduction and the first commandment, which is I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. The second commandment, you shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. The third commandment, remember the Lord's day and keep it holy. The fourth commandment, honor thy father and mother. The fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill. And then today, you shall not commit adultery. And it's not if, it's not and, it's not maybe, it's you shall not commit adultery. No ifs, ands, or buts. And it's going to get spicy because it's not just adultery that this takes care of. This is still going to be relatively kid-friendly because obviously I'm not going to go into gory detail. Well, look who it is. It is Steve Kenobi. Thank you for being here. Hello. Yes, you came in on a good one. The sixth commandment. You shall not commit adultery. You need to behave yourself. Of course, one of the easiest ways to not commit adultery, to not cheat on your wife or your husband is don't do it. I mean, I know it sounds really weird, but yes, you shall not commit adultery. When you get married, you make vows. Those vows are sacred. We've talked before about vows. That was a part of the second commandment. And there are some vows are holy and you must, keep your vows. Marriage is entered into freely, so there we go. Now let's look in detail at this commandment. Whoops. I guess today is a boomer day. I blame it on the weather. All right, here we go. The sixth commandment. Thou shalt not commit adultery, or thou shalt not. It should be a shout. Everything should have a shout when we're dealing with this. Boomer. I am a complete boomer. I've been boomering everything. Thank you, Gaming Pirates, all the way from the future. We have people from the future today ready to talk about adultery and sex. Also, hello, yes. Hope everything's relatively okay over there in Ireland. We know, well, the faith is definitely under attack. The buildings, the heritage, priests. Though I believe that the priest that got attacked, he survived. Thank goodness. But yes, the sixth commandment. We're not going to talk about murder. That was last week or the week before. You shall not commit adultery. So let's go into detail about what this means. Matthew 5, the gospel, according to Matthew, verse 28. This is what Jesus said, commenting on him. You have heard it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Yeah, don't cheat. Don't do it. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Yeah, this is a hard one for folks to deal with. It's like, well, is that really hurting anyone? Well, we're going to go into a little bit of detail about how that is also committing adultery or breaking the sixth commandment. First of all, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 2392. Love is a fundamental and innate vocation of every human being. So yes, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And also maybe go on my other channel when I previously had Catholicsplaining to go back to what the Lord said about lust. Remember, lust is different than desire or appreciating beauty. Like if you're like, yes, Jason Momoa, that's not necessarily that's not committing adultery. That's appreciating something that is beautiful, if you will. Lustfully is something different. So go read about lust in the 7 deadly sins. Love, though, is a fundamental invocation of every human being. Everything is oriented to love, no matter where you are, no matter what vocation you are in. And this also goes to vocation. Marriage is a vocation. Yes, it is. As much as the priesthood is, as much as the religious life, if you're a monk or a nun or a sister or a brother, those are vocations. So you are called to this vocation and you need to stick to it. And you need to live chastity within it. And love is behind it. So what is chastity within marriage? Obviously not cheating. Chastity in other vocations means something different. And maybe one day I'll do a thing on vocations because there's some people that don't always necessarily understand it within the church. I'm talking about here. But love, everything goes back to love. If you don't have love, you are nothing but a clanging gong. It goes back to the beginning. CCC, Catechism of Catholic Church 2393. By creating the human being, man and woman. Oh boy, already God's in controversial territory. I guess he'd get canceled. God gives personal dignity equally to the one and to the other. Each of them, man and woman, should acknowledge and accept his sexual identity. We are sexual beings. Okay? Man and woman equally. Now, we all know in the past, especially that there was maybe not that acknowledgement. The idea of boys will be boys. Actually, you still run across that. Now, of course, we're seeing women kind of stepping into it, which is unfortunate, but because either way, it's wrong. All right. It's not, well, boys will be boys, men will be men, so they get to do whatever they want, and women have to be the ones sitting around praying and being virtuous. No, equally. And equally, it is given to man and to woman. So you got personal dignity, your sexuality. So who do we look for to all of this? 2394, Christ is a model of chastity. Remember, chastity does not necessarily mean no sex. Chastity means it within your state in life. Every baptized person is called to lead a chaste life. Yeah, we're all called to live a chaste life, each according to his particular state of life. Just what I said. Thank you, Catechism of the Catholic Church. And this has to be integrated within yourself. The whole, well, I'll just pretend that part of me doesn't exist. Well, you all know where that ends up, don't we? And this is something where soap operas and 1980s miniseries get it completely right. Ignore it, and it'll just rear its ugly head in the worst ways. Right? This also, though, doesn't mean that you go and become some of those OF ladies or men. Are men on that? I don't know. Actually, I don't even want to know. All right. 2395. Chastity means the integration of sexuality within the person. What I just said, it's all integrated. Your body is connected. It's all connected. It includes an apprenticeship in mastery. 2396. Among the sins gravely contrary to chastity are, now this is where I'm not going there. You want to look them up? Have at it. But yeah, they list just about everything, including some things that serial killers like to do. It's yucky. It's gravely contrary to chastity. So, like I said, if you want to know, well, there you are. Though, again, this is not a podcast for children, so I don't think I have to explain things to you all. All right. Now we're talking about the marriage. All right. Marriage, the covenant which spouses have freely entered into, entails faithful love. You get married, there is one person you get happy with. That's your spouse. It imposes on them the obligation to keep their marriage indissoluble. It's forever until one of you goes to the great beyond. Faithful love. Within reason, there's conjugal rights. There's been talk about that. That's always been a thing. Yeah, there are conjugal rights. So if you choose freely to enter into this, like it's a marriage, it's a sacramental marriage, that comes with it. If you all choose to live chastity in the sense of, what do you call it, abstinence, as long as it's freely chosen, that's okay too, but usually not very advisable. Very, very rarely is that a situation. Now, I have heard of older people that choose to do that. Well, now that we're 80, okay, fine, that's great. But it has to be mutual. Or stay apart from each other for a time. For example, you want to not do it during Lent. Okay, that's fine, but then come together. I've known people that seem to say that that is one happy Easter. Also, for the regulation of children and all of that. And this goes back to where it has to be the man and the woman working together. Too often, we see this, oh my gosh, especially now women. Women are messing things up too, but in the past it was men, but now it's women. Now everyone's messing it up. Where there's this conflict between man and woman, a zero-sum game. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It's together. And I sometimes think that sometimes maybe a little bit of the crisis of vocations to marriage right now within the church, but also outside, you see it. Why isn't anyone getting married? Why isn't he having children? Well, because it's hard, all right? And a lot of people don't want to make the sacrifice. Now, before anyone comes and hates on me, I am speaking as a single woman who wanted to be married, okay? Just because I never got married or had children, that does not mean I didn't want to. Right. So, because you also see some people are like, why are people having careers instead of having babies? Well, because you got to make money. Or why aren't people having children? Well, do you have a just system right now? Is there a just system that you are making it possible for people who want to have children to have children? Like if you're married, you want children, but you've got all this messed up stuff where everything's so expensive. You got inflation, you've got unfair distribution of funds, and I'm not going to go into total details on that, but we all know who's getting a lot of public funding, who's getting a lot of help to get jobs, and who is not, right? So I'm not judging here, okay? When I say this, I'm not judging people even within marriage. God is the judge. However, in a perfect world, yes, that's the way it's supposed to be. And it's not easy. It takes sacrifice on both parts. Okay, who's here? Yes, Steve, thank you. Gaming parts. What if someone does believe in marriage? What if someone, or are you saying doesn't believe in marriage? Well, see, this is where things can get a little weird. Let me rephrase that. That's the wrong way of rephrasing. Phrasing, rather. This is for Catholics. The Catechism of the Catholic Church is written for Catholics. So if you are a Catholic, you believe in marriage. I mean, marriage exists. There are 7 sacraments: baptism, confirmation, communion, the most holy Eucharist, confession, marriage, sacrament of the sick, holy orders. So we believe in it. Now, if you believe in it for yourself, that's another ball game. Because not everyone is called to marriage. The most easiest one is if you are in the Latin Rite, it is most ordinary that priests, for example, do not marry. Rather, priests never marry. But if you are already married, you can become a priest in the Latin Rite with some exceptions and in other rites. Everyone I know, every woman I know that's married to a priest, so it's like, oh my gosh, celibacy. It's a nightmare to be married to a priest. But that's one. You're most likely called to be not having sex, or obviously you become a nun. Now, if you are single by choice, woohoo, that's great. Sometimes it's consecrated single or privately consecrated. If you're a deacon, you're married. If you're a deacon, deacons are ordinarily married, and deacons if you're already married, you can. So it's ordinary for deacons to be married. It's extraordinary when priests are married in the Latin Rite. So, but once your spouse dies, if you're a priest or a deacon, then you do not get married. Then for the rest of your life, it ain't going to happen for you. So that's that. As far as if you are single not by choice, that's me. I was always open to marriage. I never made any vows, and I have no vows now. My only vow is, that I will be faithful when I enter into marriage. No adultery. I was not called to religious life, so there you are. It's a gift. All right, what does the gaming pirate say? My girlfriend, her folks had an awful marriage, and she said it isn't for her. I understand that, yeah, because when we see people having awful marriages, that's also a reason why a lot of people do not get married. And I understand that, especially my generation or who have parents that got divorced. It's like, well, why would I get married and then get divorced? Or you see men even saying, why would I get married and have the woman take everything away from me? Or as the gaming pirates say, if they're miserable, I get it. I absolutely get it. Completely understand. Why would you want to be trapped in a loveless marriage? That's a living hell. That's why I'm saying it's all easier said than done. It's all easier said than done. Hello, it's Stephen Ransom. Thank you for being here. Yes, we're talking about adultery, and now we're talking about marriage. Yeah, marriage is hard. Marriage is just as hard, if you will, if even more hard than difficult, rather. Oh gosh, difficult than the religious life. Like a lot of people say, oh yeah, just let everyone have sex. Let the priest get married. Well, first of all, like I said, if you know any married priests, you know what I'm talking about. But it doesn't change you, all right? Or even look at Christian denominations that derive from the Reformation. They all have marriage. They are miserable, just as miserable. They get divorced, all that stuff, all right? It's not like a magic cure. You talk to any priest, or frankly, any sister or monk or friar or nun, they will tell you chastity is not the most difficult vow to keep. The most difficult vow to keep is obedience. The money, like I said, it's obedience that's hard. Let's see. Gaming Pirate says, she said before, if I ever heard, she knows where I live and she owns oh boy, okay, yes. Yes. Well, and that's the thing about this whole mutual thing. It's like you have mutual charity. Like if you get married, the name of your vocation is your spouse. I've known people that still call their husbands their groom and their wives their bride. And that's actually a very, very good way of looking at it. And if you get out of that bridal state, yes, things go bad. And I think the reason why things go so badly when marriages go badly is because whenever you have something that holy and it gets desecrated, it's like 10 times worse. Because marriage is so holy, it goes so badly. And I feel for people. I really do. Steve Ranson says, I know I'm late, but did you cover the ancient idea of committing to a partner knew, or the difference between now and then? Committing to the partner knew. Oh, are you talking about where St. Paul talks about marry your virgin? If I'm thinking about that, am I right? Yeah, that's always a weird one. I always wondered about that. Or marry your unbeliever or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. That comes from some customs, some ancient customs. I think it also comes from people that are living together and he's like, get married. If you're talking about St. Paul, help me out if you're wrong there. Now, this is where I am not a biblical scholar, nor do I play one on TV. I actually have never had any Catholic education, believe it or not. The only formal Catholic education I have ever had was the inquiry stage of RCIA and one very small mandatory course when I was a teacher. And it had stuff I already knew. So actually, that's my formal Catholic education. And I'm not a scholar. I'm not a theologian. So theologians help me out if that's what you're referring to. But in general, if you're with someone, you're faithful to them. Boom. If you're not, you're faithful to God or to your vows. If you're a weirdo like me who is not committed, actually, I shouldn't say a weirdo. There's more of me than people like to admit because people don't know what to do with people like me. Single, not by choice, but open or, I know someone, I have a friend, my gosh, she got married at 54, first marriage. It happens. All right. Or sometimes you get a really late vocation. I know a priest, his wife died and all that, and he became a priest in his 70s. It happens. But you're faithful. You're faithful and you're integrated with where you are. Stephen Ransom says, sure, and the simple idea that marriage is a commitment to God. Yes, it is. Yeah. And that's why it's so sacred. It's a vow. Yeah, we take vows every time we go to mass. Every time we say amen, those are all vows. So say we all. When you say the creed, you stand and you say the creed, those are all vows. You say amen before you receive the Eucharist. It's all holy and it's all committed to God. And the same thing with marriage. And marriage is where the spouses give themselves to each other. It's the only sacrament that works like that. The priest is just the witness. He is acting on behalf of the church. And I shouldn't say just. I mean, obviously it's a big deal, but it's the people that confer the sacrament on each other. That's why you can have annulments where if people are lying when they're making their vows or they're not understanding it or they weren't capable of it or they were coerced into it, that's where you get annulments because they weren't able to confer it on each other. It was not a sacrament. And it does not become a sacramental marriage until the deed is done. That was abused in the past, especially with some politics with kings and queens and all that. It was like, okay, we'll get married, but just in case we won't consummate it so they can get divorced. Or rather, an annulment. They can separate. And yes, it is indissoluble, but you can separate. And in some situations, it is understood that you must separate where the safety of one of the spouses or the children is involved. So you're not being told to just stick it and live with it. No. Those were human customs of the past in society. I have some issues with the TV show called The Midwife, but they do a very, very good job of showing how society was in these issues. Not necessarily coming from the church. And in their case, it was the Anglican church, but right concept. Stephen Ransom says, our modern commitments are not as spiritual as the past. That the modern world has softened the importance of commitment under God. That's right. Well, think about it. When you go into court and perjury, so help me God. This goes back to the second commandment. Yeah. You can go to jail. Now, do they still make you say, so help me God? Or is it a choice? It might be a choice nowadays. And that'll, do it over the Bible. The president does that. That's custom. That goes back to George Washington. He added, so help me God. That's not in the Constitution, but ever since then people have. And they use the family Bible usually. There is also in Catholic tradition where, yes, the Holy Scriptures, but also like a relic. I don't think you make a vow over the Eucharist. Someone help me if they know. But same concept. It's holy. And so if you break that word, it's bad. That's why it should not be entered into lightly. Actually, that's the old words, isn't it, from the marriage thing? Not to be entered into lightly, unadvisedly, soberly. I think that's the Protestant language, the Anglican language. That's my heritage, so that still comes to my head. But it's right. Same thing with any vow. If you go to mass, any vow you make, not to be done lightly. It's better to not make the vow at all than to do so. That's also, this goes a little bit to communion, why it's better to refrain from communion than to take it, what do they say? Such that it brings death upon you. Yeah, that like St. Paul says. It's no sin to refrain from receiving the Eucharist. All right. So help. Oh, I'm not going to say that. You're going to get me in trouble. Gaming Pirate says, my granddad made a promise over rosary beads with his brother. Never heard of that otherwise. Oh, yes. Rosary beads is another thing. Yes. And wow, that's pretty intense. Yeah. And that's how you know you're serious. And if you break it, yeah, you might be damned. That's why Men for All Seasons should be mandatory watching for everybody. Why he would not take the oath. Why he would do just about anything, St. Thomas More, except take the oath. And that was why they made it an oath. That goes back to the English Reformation and how it happened. But yes, to go back to marriage, you see, it's all connected. The Mass is marital language. Blessed are those called to the supper of the Lamb, the wedding feast. Book of Revelation, all that. That's what they say before we receive communion. We're very dramatic. Behold the Lamb of God. Behold him who takes away the sin of the world. How happy those called to the supper of the Lamb. And we go, Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof, enter under my roof, but only say the word, and my soul shall be healed. Domine nosum dignus et intessit tectum meum, sed tantum vic verbo et senabitur anima mea. So much easier for me to say that in Latin. Because the whole English translation, that's a whole other ballgame. Yeah. I love using Latin in Mass. Latin's fun. All right, let's continue. Ooh. Fecundity is a good, a gift, and an end of marriage. Marriage is about children. Now, before anyone says, what about people that can't have children? Well, that's very sad. If it's a sadness if someone can't have children. It's not a sin to not have children. It's like, yeah, you can be married and not have children. For example, if you know you are okay, you've got really bad endometriosis, you can still get married. Okay. So when we say the end is children, it's not that children make it legitimate. SEX does. Or if you're past the age of being having children, yeah, you can get married. You can get married if you're postmenopausal. I think dudes can almost always do it, but okay, don't want to get in gory details, but sometimes men have issues too for other reasons. But yeah, you can get married. You don't have to have children. So this is not a judgment that if you don't have children, there's something wrong with you or somehow your marriage is not marriage and all that kind of stuff. But it is objectively an end to marriage. It's an end to marriage, children. Yeah, so if you get married, that's kind of the idea that you're going to have children. By giving life, spouses participate in God's fatherhood. This is why we say sex is holy. Sex is Trinitarian. Two, become one in sex, to become three, to make a baby. The Trinity. The symbolism is there. Stephen Ransom says, what is the Latin intent of the word marriage? Was there a previous word or concept? The word seems meaningless because of modern neglect. What's the long definition? Oh, good question. Now, we call it the sacrament of holy matrimony. We really actually don't use the word marriage. Marriage is more of a legal term. But let's see. Yeah, this is part of it, isn't it? The Sixth Commandment was... I'm going to Google the actual wording. The sacrament of holy matrimony. That's why, like, sometimes people will say marriages can be dissolved, but not the sacrament of holy matrimony. And it's probably a better way of calling it matrimony. Um, let's see. The public sign that one gives oneself totally to the other person is also a public statement about God. The USCCB says scripture from its origin and purpose. The sacrament of marriage is a covenant, which is more than a contract. Covenant always expresses a relationship between persons. The marriage covenant, or the sacrament of marriage, matrimony, refers to the relationships between husband and wife, a permanent union of persons capable of knowing and loving each other and God. And when we say no, we mean no. If you know, you do. Let's see if I can say CCC. Oh, there we go. Something to be thinking about. Yeah. Yeah. A covenant by which a man and woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole life and which is ordered by its nature. Yeah. It's in Article 7 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 1601. Yeah. This is a whole big one. The matrimonial covenant by which a man and woman establish between themselves a partnership of the whole of life by its nature ordered toward the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of offspring. The covenant between baptized persons has been raised by Christ the Lord to the dignity of a sacrament. That's the other thing I forgot to say. It's a sacrament when it's between baptized persons. When it's not, there's another name for it, and I totally forget what it is. And baptized doesn't necessarily mean they don't have to both be Catholic. Obviously, you can have the sacrament of matrimony with a baptized person who is not a Catholic. Because we've talked before when I talked about the sacrament of baptism, baptism is baptism. If you are baptized in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, that's it. We believe it's a one-time deal. So, yes, it's a sacrament if, say, you're Methodist and your husband's Catholic, or your wife's Anglican and you're a Catholic, or all of those combinations thereof. It is a sacrament. If they are not baptized, I forget what it's called. Is it something to do with the Pauline privilege, or I honestly don't know. Catholic Answers was talking about it the other day. Another Trinity, then. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes. And we've talked about situations where divorce or separation. And when we talk about divorce, sometimes people put the word civil divorce in front of it, though that's a bit redundant. Divorce is a civil situation. Annulment is something completely different. So yeah, you don't break it. Now, divorce and remarriage, yeah, that's a whole other ball game now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah. That's not possible. Now, if it's an annulment, that's another whole all ball game as well. Once a sacrament, always a sacrament, if it's a sacrament. And nowadays, it's not a surprise that you see situations where it's not necessarily sacramental. Now, that doesn't make it sinful. But see a theologian about that one. Ask Thomas Aquinas. He's better than I am with all this stuff in general, because permanence is something that people have issues with. And again, the maturity it takes to enter into the sacrament and be faithful. And this is why it's so important that society supports people. Like, don't just sit around and point your finger and be all judgy and be like, this person's sinning. Well, why are they? Why are they? Ask yourself that. How are you building the city of God? How are you helping people? Are you judging? No one likes a judge, and we're not supposed to judge. Okay. But If you are married, that's the person you're going to get happy with. And sex is two purposes. Again, we talked about the creation of children, but also for, as Saint Ignatius Loyola said, the comfort to each other, the mutual comfort. That's the way someone in the 16th century would say happy. That's the purpose as well. And you need to work together to do this. That's why it is so important. The marital act is so important. All right, I'm going to get out of here because, man, yeah, we got into talking about marriage, but that's why it's so important. And that's why it is so awful when you commit adultery. Just the natural reasons why it's so awful when you commit adultery, where you put your spouse at risk. Like, what if you bring home something that isn't very pleasant and your spouse is having sex with you? You're getting happy with each other, and one of them doesn't know that they are actually being exposed to an ST with a D. That's horrible, horrible breach of trust. Or if you pass off your child as your husband's and he doesn't know it. Or what it does to the children when you cheat. It's like, he makes me happy. Oh, what it does to children. Yeah. It's a break of such sacred trust. There's a reason why that one of the number one reasons for in with an UR and D and an R is infidelity. All right, so these are my thoughts. Now, some of these were my thoughts. Some of these are the church's thoughts. As always, look them up. I have my limits on this, but don't cheat. Be faithful. If you are married, mutually support each other. If you are a person under vows, you're a priest, you're a nun or religious, I think that's the same thing. If you're religious, that's all of those other vocations. Be faithful. Integrate your sexuality. Don't ignore it. Respect the act. Respect the people with whom you are doing it with. Just a second, I think I'm going to sneeze. I do not want to sneeze because that's obnoxious. Okay, I think I'm going to have to mute. No, I don't. All right, there we go. I sneezed. All right, so with that in mind, don't cheat. Love. Faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. So I want to thank everyone that's been watching and listening. Let's see, who do we have? We had Steven Ransom, we had Steve Kenobi, we had the Gaming Pirates. Let's see. And other people were in and out. Thank you for watching. And please leave a like, share, and a subscribe early and often. I do enjoy this content and sharing it with you. Something that's a big part of my life. Keeps me sane. Let's see. Oh, Stephen Ransom says, should civil law deal differently with religious marriages when adultery is involved? Perhaps fact check the non-religious ones, add harsher penalties for sanctified one. No. Civil law stays out of it. That's my opinion. It doesn't matter. Because once you get the state involved with what's marriage, what's a sacrament, and what's not, that's a very bad idea. Very bad idea. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we will be getting all civil, like, marriages separate from it. Because, how would a secular government determine what's religious and what's not? And now that we have no-fault divorce, adultery doesn't matter for marriage. But yeah, that's my opinion, and I think it's the opinion of the church, but don't quote me on that one. I always encourage folks, if you want more details about this and want it explained far better than I can, Catholic Answers does a great job. And sometimes they'll have even ones where it's like, non-Catholics call in today. Let's see. He says, feel better, but keep up your activities. Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm still swimming, but I have to rest. I'm going to find out the results of my MRI, hopefully this week, and figure out what's going. But apparently, everybody, if something starts to hurt, don't keep exercising with it. Just don't. It's a very bad idea. Chat, yes, everyone, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting this channel. I really appreciate it. And Stephen Ransom, yes, I did see your request. I will be going into it. I think maybe after I'm done with the 10 Commandments, we might be doing that live stream, or maybe a short, or maybe a video. So thank you, and stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and be certain to not break the Sixth Commandment.